Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at making a minimalist movie poster. This can apply to any type of poster. It doesn't have to be for movies, but we're just going to look at some movie posters just to show you what we're going to eventually end up with. Something like some of these as inspiration. This is for Up, The Truman Show, Psycho, Mad Max, Lost Highway, Fight Club. This tutorial is going to go over a lot of basics in Adobe Illustrator. So it is a very foundational tutorial. As you can see, using very basic geometric shapes, a limited color palette, a single typeface. Some of these are really great examples where you're essentially distilling the essence of an entire movie, entire story into something it's usually going to be some sort of iconic imagery related to that movie. And just kind of stripping away everything else, all the extra decoration or expressive elements that might come in other different forms of graphic design. We're getting rid of all of that. We're keeping it really, really simple, minimal, and using this as a way to kind of learn some new tools and processes in Illustrator, mainly for beginners. So let's go ahead and get started. So if we open up Illustrator, we make a new file, and we're going to do 11 by 17. I'm just going to title this movie poster. Let me type that in again. And I'm going to change the units from pixels to inches so that I can put in 11 inches wide, 17 inches tall, just one artboard. And we're not going to print these, so we're going to use RGB color mode at 72 ppi. Press create. And we have our blank slate. Now, we're going to use the layers tab a bit here, because as you start putting on different elements, it can get a little messy when you're trying to move things around and make edits, make changes. When you have all these different things kind of stacked up on one layer, it's better to use multiple layers, especially for things that are on top of each other. So, starting off, we're going to keep our color palette limited to 5 colors. That's just a rule that we're using just to keep things simple. It forces us to really, again, kind of condense maybe a scene or some sort of iconic imagery into very basic shapes and colors. I'm going to use one of my favorite movies, Dune. I'm a big sci-fi guy. So I'm going to start with an idea with a Dune movie poster. So I think naturally, if you are familiar with Dune, you know it's kind of this desert sandy planet, right? So I probably am going to start with something, a background color that looks like sand in a way. All right, so I have this layer 1. I can go ahead and fill this layer with a rectangle that's the same size, 11 by 17. So if I click on the rectangle tool, and by the way, I am using the Essentials Classic workspace. If yours looks a little different, you can come up here, click on this box, or go to Window and Workspace and select Essentials Classic so that yours looks like mine. You can follow along a little bit easier. Alright, so if I click on the rectangle tool, and if I click and drag, very simple, it makes a rectangle. As I click and hold, drag around, it makes a rectangle of any shape. And right now it looks like it's just a thin line, this outline of the rectangle. But if I move this over, you can actually see it's filled with a white solid fill. I just couldn't see that because it's white on white. If I want to change the color, again, this is an Essentials Classic. I can just click on the fill or stroke color. So just as an example, I'm going to change the fill to magenta, and the stroke, just so you can see it well, I'll change it to a blue, dark blue. And if I zoom in, you can see dark blue stroke here. Obviously, this is a very thin stroke. If I want to make this larger, I can increase the point size there. Okay, so I don't need this outline, this stroke. I just need a solid kind of sandy color to fill up the entire poster. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to click on where I can change the color here. By the way, if these are just kind of the default swatches, color swatches, you can also double click on this one. This is the fill color or stroke color, and you can use the color picker to choose kind of any color you want that's in the RGB spectrum. Okay, but right now I don't want a stroke, so I'm going to turn the stroke off. So under the swatch tiles on the top left, I see one with a little red diagonal. That's to select none. So now I just have the fill color. And again, just as an example, I'm going to double click on the square here to bring up the color picker, and you get somewhere closer to a really light sandy color. I can always change this later, so I'm not worried about if I don't get it quite right on the first try. I'm going to press OK. And now instead of clicking and dragging out a rectangle, I know what size I want it to be. I want it to be exactly 11 inches wide, 17 inches tall. So I'm just going to click once. I'm not going to click and hold and drag. I'm just going to click one time. And that brings up this box where I can type in 11 by 17, and in case yours changes it to pixels, you can just make sure it's 11 space IN for inches. That way it is the same size, 11 by 17 inches. And then I press OK. And then I go back to my selection tool here, and I can move this around. Now I have on the smart guides. So you'll see as I get closer to getting it in the right place, you see these magenta kind of pink lines that pop up. They are showing me, they're helping me perfectly place the rectangle. You can go to View and Smart Guides, keyboard shortcut Command U on Mac, to turn those off or on. All right, so I kind of have a sandy color background now. As just an illustration, if I wanted to make another shape, again, I'll just use magenta so it's easy to see. If I started making my design, and say I get a few shapes out here, but I want to start moving them around. An easy way to do this is by using your selection tool, clicking and dragging to select these shapes. So I know it's hard to see, but I'm dragging out a selection area by clicking and holding and dragging it out, and then I can select these. The problem is that it also selected this background shape. So if I want to move these and I select them, when I go to move them, it moves everything because the background rectangle was in that selection area as well. So I don't want this. I want, by the way, I'm pressing Command Z, that's to undo. I want to just select these objects, and I don't want to move the background. So this is where layers, using the layers panel comes in handy, because I don't need these actually. So I'm gonna lock this layer, layer 1, that just has this background color, you'll see layer 1 and a little eyeball here, and then there's a space to the right of the eyeball. If I click on that, a little lock icon pops up. Right now, I can no longer click and move that sandy colored rectangle because it is on a locked layer. If I want to change it, like I want to change the color, I have to unlock it, press on the little lock, and now I can select it. And let's say I want to make it a little lighter. I press OK, so I can change it. But as soon as I lock it, it's no longer able to be edited, which is great because now I can make a second layer. So that's layer 1. If I come down here, you see a little box with a plus symbol. That's to create a new layer. Now on layer 2, I can, let's say, make some new shapes. These are all the same sandy colored shapes. So let me just make them magenta again. So now if I click and drag to select, I can now move them around and it won't move the background color because it is locked. Okay, next up, we already got a little preview on the rectangle tool, but if you click and hold down on the rectangle tool, it brings up some other options. So you have rounded rectangle tool, ellipse tool, polygon, star, flare. Ellipse tool, this is where you're going to make circles. Now, again, if I just click and drag, I can make some sort of ellipse shape, and it could be more like an oval. Let's say something like this, or something more vertical. If I want a perfect circle, now I have my smart guys turned on, and when it's a perfect circle, those little pink lines pop up, and it shows me that they're perfect. But as I'm clicking and dragging around, it's, you know, if I accidentally stretch it or squish it too much, it loses the proportions of a perfect circle. In order to keep something perfectly proportioned, and this also goes for the rectangle tool, if I want to make a perfect square, I hold down Shift. So as I'm clicking and dragging out the shape, if I press and hold Shift on my keyboard, now it keeps it constrained so that as I make it bigger or smaller, it stays a perfect circle. And if I let go of Shift, now it's back to being any type of other ellipse. So let's say I go here and I suddenly press Shift, perfect circle. Okay, next up is the line segment tool, or just the line tool. If I click on that, it's what it sounds like. Click and drag, I can make a line. However, notice, as soon as right now it's selected, as you can see the little boxes on the end, if I deselect it, it disappears. Because this one that I made only uses the stroke, because the stroke is basically what we see as the width of a line, and this still has no stroke. So if I want to see this line, I'm going to select it, I'm going to stroke. Again, I'll use magenta, and now if I deselect, I can actually see that line segment that I made. And then when I select it, and then just to make it a little bit more visible, I'm going to increase the stroke, and now I have the line segment. So I can go back to the line segment tool and start making all kinds of shapes now, all kinds of lines. Okay. For the next one, I'll show the polygon tool. Again, it's underneath, it's in the same area as the ellipse and rectangle tool. If I click and drag, it starts with a hexagon, but as I'm holding down, I haven't let up off my mouse. If I press the arrow keys, up and down arrow, it changes how many sides this polygon has. So this comes in handy for making triangles. In this case, this is how you would make a perfect triangle. The other thing to note, as I spin this around, if I wanted it to be perfectly flat, horizontal on the bottom, I could try to line it up, but it might be a little off. If I want it perfectly horizontal, again, I hold down Shift. And now I can move my mouse around. It makes it larger, smaller, but it doesn't allow me to rotate it anymore, which can come in handy if you want a perfectly flat base of the triangle. And in this case, it kept the properties of the line tool that I had, that magenta stroke. Let's say I don't want the magenta stroke. I want to change it back to fill. A little shortcut is this little arrow right here. I can swap fill and stroke, keyboard shortcut Shift X. If I click on this, it changes it from a magenta stroke to a magenta fill. Now once I make, in this case, a triangle, I can change the proportions. If I want something taller or flatter. But I'll probably make a few triangles a little bit later on, but we'll go ahead and delete that. Next up is the pen tool. The pen tool is actually the most important tool in Adobe Illustrator for making vector shapes, for making illustrations. The pen tool is what gives you the most amount of control over the shapes that you make, that you want to make. So obviously we're working with squares, circles, triangles, but a lot of times you'll want to make some sort of shape that is not in one of those three. So if I go to the pen tool, keyboard shortcut P, I can start clicking once. It makes a point. And then I go, and you'll see I'm not clicking and holding down. As I move the cursor around, it follows, this red line follows me, kind of showing where that line will go. So let's say I want something like the letter M, something similar to the letter M. Let's see it. I'll go up here, I click once, so now I made 2 points, and there's a path that connects the point. Now I'll go back here, click once, another path. Now it's already filled that space between these 3 points, but I'm going to keep going this way. Click once, and again, and then I need to complete the shape. So that very first point that I made, I need to complete it by, or closing it by clicking on it once again when I'm done. So now I have a shape that's relatively like an M. If I go to my selection tool, I can move it around, but you'll notice it's not perfect. And as designers, we like perfection. The point here is not perfectly centered. So if I click on this shape, if I go to my direct selection tool, keyboard shortcut A, I can click on any of these points and I can move them around. So if I click on this one, I can move it. Now, the good thing is, since I have the smart guides turned on, it shows me the center of between the two vertical sides here. So now I know my the valley in this M is perfectly symmetrical, perfectly centered, and so each side is symmetrical. Now if I wanted to, same for any of these, I can click on any of these anchor points, move them around however I want. So you can do that with the direct selection tool. Okay, next up, let's look at the pathfinder. So with the pen tool, you can use that to make just about anything as a vector. Let's say I want to make a moon shape. Moons are iconic, that kind of sliver. Might be something I can definitely see someone wanting to make. All right, so if I click to start the moon, and then again, I know what I'm doing, so some of this may take a little trial and error for you. But if you click and hold with the pen tool on that second anchor point, you can make curves. So I'm doing this, and then I'm going to come back here this way. And then I roughly get a moon shape. Now, this is not great. It's also not perfect. I could go back in there with my direct selection tool, just like I did with the M. I could click on this, I can move it around. I can adjust the handlebars to get it closer, but it's still not ideal. I could spend a lot of time trying to get this perfect, but it's just not quite the moon shape I want. There's another way to build shapes using the pathfinder. If I go to the ellipse tool, and I'm going to make a perfect circle, I held down shift, made a perfect circle, and then I'm going to copy and paste it. So I'm basically duplicating it. There's a couple different shortcuts. I mean, you can just press Command D. You have to actually copy it first. But if you Command C and then Command V, that duplicates it, copies and pastes it. Or if you hold down Option or Alt, if you're using Windows, you see the cursor changes. I can click and drag that out, and then it duplicates the shape or the object. Either way, I just know I'm going to duplicate. I need to double this circle. So once I do that, if I select both of them, you'll actually notice you already can see the shapes that are made when their paths intersect and overlap. And guess what? I already see kind of a moon shape right here. Now I can change it. I can make it bigger or smaller. So I'm going to select those. I'm going to go to Window and then Pathfinder. And then if I go to these different pathfinding modes, it will either add, subtract, kind of split these two shapes apart on the places that their paths intersect. For instance, Unite. If I press that, now this is just one shape, one blob. It's no longer two circles. I'm going to undo that. And I know I want to do minus front. So I do that, it subtracts this circle from the other one, and I'm left with a perfect moon shape. Now, this wasn't in my original plans, but who knows, with Dune as my movie poster. Maybe I'll keep the moon for later. I might be able to incorporate that into the design. Okay. Next up, pencil tool. Now, you don't have to really worry about the pencil tool right now. I'm going to show you how it works just so that you have it in your arsenal. But basically, this would be the one where you can click and start drawing out all these these shape pieces. And then it's smoothed out into these paths that again can just be, I can use the direct selection tool and I can edit them. I can move them around. So if you want to freehand it a little bit more, that is an option. Please, for this project, don't use the paintbrush tool. Again, think about creating a minimal movie poster, or poster in general. We're wanting to illustrate and create some sort of iconic imagery that kind of represents the entire story with basic shapes and colors. We don't want to get too detailed. We don't want to get decorative. We don't want to have a lot of crazy stuff. If you use the brush tool, you'll notice it's going to have this actually doesn't look too bad here, but a lot of brushes, they're much more expressive. They'll have actually some of them will have textures and things like that, which we don't want to use for our shapes. Okay, for this Dune poster, if you're familiar with the book and the movie, you'll know that one of the big things is the people of the planet Dune. The natives have blue eyes. So the people that have lived their whole life there, they breathe in the spice and they have solid blue eyes, kind of these iconic blue eyes. Also, the sandworm, big thing, right? So that's big in the Dune story. My goal is to try to find a way to combine those two images. So I'm going to make an eyeball to start off with. So just like I made the moon, I'm going to use 2 circles. Right now this has a stroke. Actually, you'll be able to see it better once I combine these. So I'm using the circles because I know that this, like a Venn diagram, the space in between looks like an eyeball shape. So if I select both of them, go to my pathfinder, and now I have to remember which one is the correct option. A lot of times I will forget, and sometimes you have to just go through these, press Command Z if you don't get what you want. To get the shape here in the intersection, which makes sense, I use the intersect mode. So I had them selected, press intersect, and now I'm left with just this eyeball shape. So I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm holding Shift so that it doesn't get squished or stretched. And I'm going to change it from a stroke to a fill, and I'll change it to this. Well, I'll start here with this blue, kind of cyan blue. I probably will change this color later, but we'll just keep it here for now. And then for the kind of pupil iris area of the eye, my idea is to use a kind of that mouth of this sandworm that has these teeth inside it. So I'm trying to combine 2 images that are kind of iconic from the movie. You know, a lot of the example posters I showed, they don't necessarily combine imagery, but it always is a little bit more powerful if you can find a kind of clever way to merge some of these images. So I'm going to go to the ellipse tool, make another circle, and then I'm going to make the teeth on it with a triangle. So because the teeth are going to be on the circle, I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to go ahead and lock this circle layer. So I go to my polygon, and I got my triangle. I'll keep it like this. And now I'm going to make it a little bit more, sorry for their instructions there. I'm going to make it a little sharper. And we'll make it a darker blue for now, so it's easier to see. I'll make it, basically I'm just going to start duplicating, rotating these around. There is an easier way, a faster way to rotate objects. I rotate this a little too much, so I'm just gonna go through here. To rotate objects around a central point using the rotate tool, but for this I'm just gonna go quickly here. What I could do, I could select these and then I could duplicate them here, rotate them, and then move a few more. All right, so let's say we're happy with this. This is kind of the minimal version of the sandworm. But I want to change the colors. I'm going to make this a little bit lighter, actually. Maybe a little bit more blue. A little bit darker. I'm going to lock that again. I'm going to select all of the teeth. Make them darker here. Okay, so now I'm going to select these two, make them smaller, put it in the center. And this is very quick. I'm not taking a lot of time with it. But we get something that both represents the sandworm mouth and the iconic blue eyes. And I'm going to center it here. I've selected all of them. I might make this a little bit, just a little bit bigger. Next up, I'm going to make the title. So using the text tool, draw out my text box, my Dune, and we want to use something not a very decorative, expressive font. We want to use something more geometric, something that's appropriate for minimalism. I'm going to use Futura. I'll go ahead and use Futura Bold, make it larger. And I'll try making this white just to give it a little bit more contrast. Actually, I'll center this in the text box. That way, center it here. And then for this project, it'll be good to have, you can put in like a quote. A quote from this movie is, "Fear is the mind killer." Now, obviously we don't want this as big. This is where we start establishing hierarchy. Typographic hierarchy, but also just graphic hierarchy in general. The main thing we see first is the eye. That is the imagery that brings us all together. Then we see the title. And then below that, at a smaller size, is the phrase, the quote. I recommend using the rule of thirds. So in this case, I'm not putting it just directly in the middle, because then suddenly it's unbalanced. You have all of this space at top that's empty, negative space, and then this you have filled up with the text. It makes it too much weighted on the bottom. Rule of thirds, imagine if this rectangle was divided into thirds. This would go on that top third, and then this, I could probably have it a little further up. This kind of balances it out at the bottom. All right, the next thing is we want to add texture. This actually is kind of breaking the rule of minimalism because it is adding something more decorative, but we're not going to think of it as decoration. We're going to think of it as making this poster feel more real, more tangible, tactile in a way. It's also a way for us to learn about blend modes. So I recommend going to unsplash.com. They have a section for textures, or you can type in what you're looking for. I think what would be appropriate here is sand texture. And you got a lot of different textures here to work with. The ones that have, in this case for this website, the little symbol on the top left, that means that there's some sort of licensing. You might have to pay for it, but if you go to license and you press free, then it filters out. You can use the ones that are completely free to download and use. So I already have it downloaded here. I'm using this sand texture, so this is in Finder. I can now click and drag it onto this artboard. It's very large, so I'm going to size it down. Now, usually I would not recommend just magically fitting your photograph to the size of your artboard, because that means you're probably going to be either squishing or stretching it, and you don't want to do that. For something like texture, it's actually workable. But anything that's, where you see a person or a landscape, you don't want to squish or stretch because it distorts the image. All right, so I have this image that I placed on top, and now I want to use a blend mode to get it to blend into the colors and the shapes below it. So I'm going to go to my transparency window. If I don't see that, I can go to Window and then Transparency. And I'll click on that one more time because I just turned it off. And then where it says Normal, I'm going to click on that, and then these are all my blend modes. This is also going to be some trial and error. So if I just click on Start with Multiply, now it's blending that sand texture with my other colors. Let's do Screen. Obviously that doesn't look good, too bright. Overlay, Soft Light, Hard Light. So this is going to be where you look for one that is close to where you want to be. Let's just say I go to Multiply, doesn't look too bad, but the texture is a little too strong. I can still click on it, and next to where it says the blend mode, Multiply, I can take down the opacity. So at 0%, it just looks, I just see the poster that I made earlier, and I can slowly increase it. Maybe I just want something, a subtle sand texture in the background. This would fulfill that. So I can just zoom in. I can still see it there. It adds a little bit, something extra to the poster, but it doesn't overpower it. I can do that with any of these, but we'll just keep it at Multiply for now. All right, so I know I went through this very quickly. You can take more time, do something a little more perfect. Like if I was gonna do the shape of the eye and the teeth of the worm and all that, I would take a little more time. But for the sake of this tutorial, let's just say I'm done now. Now we got to export. So to export as a PDF, I can go to File. And I'm going to do, well, first off, if I save it, it's going to save the Illustrator file, the project file, which you do want to save that. So you can save it on your cloud, or I like to save it on my computer. So I have it in the folder here, and I can just press save, press OK. And then to save it as a PDF, I can go to File, Save a Copy. And then instead of Format, Adobe Illustrator, I can click on PDF, Save, Save, and it brings up the poster here. In Acrobat, I have it defaulted that way. If you want to save it as an image, like a JPEG image, go to File, Export, Export As, and then you can choose the format here, so JPEG, and then I'm going to use the artboard because I ended up not wanting the moon included, so I'm just going to have the artboard turned on, press Export, and then keep this large file, press OK, and it will save the JPEG image. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. The basics of just getting started, using some of these tools in Illustrator and bringing in the texture and using blend modes and all that, and then saving it, exporting it for those final files. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to answer if there's anything that comes up that I didn't explain thoroughly.